Okay, Berfu, hello. I did see the final page where you have the your logo. I remember that this is the logo that you developed last year, I think. It's okay. I mean, you can use the same thing. It's looking so much better anyway than the previous sketches that you sent. Oh, I have one thing though. When I look at the way the bee fits in this, I feel like this is because it's a bit bigger here than is here. I wondered if you need to move it, but a tiny bit, like half a millimeter or something. If you were to move it a little bit, I think it would fit much better. So, but how you took that thing and made use of it like that is interesting. Wasn't something I would expect, but it doesn't look. It's not bad. You could work with it. So you could even work with such a pattern, and it might actually be very interesting to use this on the inside of the cover and so on. So in different places, and you can of course play with the different colors depending on the different projects. But the problem that I have is how you kind of use this as a separate thing on this page. And for example, here, the way this next image is placed is a bit disconnected from it, don't you think? So it's good that you only have this at the very beginning and then you don't keep using it. I like this choice, and you kind of also use it to kind of finish up the project. These are good choices, I think, those good decisions. Um, Maybe I wonder if you can have one of them continue on to the next page somehow to interact better with whatever we're seeing here. Or maybe like when I look at this image, there is too much. I mean, the margins that you're leaving are huge, I think, and it's true for every page. And by the way, why do you feel the need to put an additional frame? It's as if your actual page is here and this rest is like a mistake. You see, it keeps being, I mean, we always say that negative space is a good thing, but right now this is not really negative space. It's just too much of a margin, which makes it look like it's a mistake. So I suggest you kind of increase your used area, so kind of make the margins a bit more traditional, so not that huge. And again, maybe you can, if you're gonna have more space here, you can think about taking these informations and placing them here maybe, or somehow maybe extending these graphics so that this fits on top. So a lot of questions. I'm not sure which one would work best, but right now they're a bit disconnected. So okay, you're using the logo type that you use in your identity for the opening kind of project openings, and also for every title on the inner pages. It's good that you've picked a fully different, more regular typeface here, and it's looking good. So I'm okay with all of that. For the main upper titles, I'm okay with it, but even the secondary titles, I think you can go with the bold version of this one maybe. This should be really rarely used, I think. So here, I don't think that it's necessary. You are kind of center aligning this subtitle, but it's not centrically aligned with the title. So that's a bit weird. So it looks like it's being aligned with the left side because it kind of extends more towards the right. So there's something wrong here. So maybe you don't have to put it right behind it, but take this Y and maybe right accordingly. So left aligned, but with an angle, perhaps. So Metro Ideal Industrial Design Studio 2020. Okay. Don't you have any advisors or a firm that was you're collaborating with? You might think of these informations as well if you have them. Mm. So one question though, I wonder if you can have a better image here because it's a bit hard to understand what we're looking at in this image. That's another problem. So I think you're again leaving, like I said, this overall margin is too much. If you kind of gonna start up with something like that, then yeah, maybe you need to change the angles here so that it maybe perhaps comes a bit more like that so that I can shift this one up. Because the placement of that W is actually good when that graphical shape is here. But since I want to move it up, I want to move it up to here actually. So one thing to do is to have a graphic element that goes like more toward here and less towards the right. So what about this shape? It kind of looks a bit unrelated. It doesn't look like it belongs to something that comes from your identity. They can just be regular bullet points, or something a bit different. But again, also this frame looks too unnecessary. This is where you're playing at, so you don't need to include these things. So it would be better if you can clean this up a bit more, maybe put it larger, but your overall organizations are nice. The images are nice. I mean, again, the only thing you need to do is less of a margin so that you have more space to make these images larger, which is always a good thing. Please add some text, explain to me how the scenario works. I think maybe instead of placing the yendo here, it might be a better idea to place it here as a closing, you see. So these texts have become too small. I think this is maybe too much, at least from in the size that I'm looking at. So you don't really need to change sizes here. By the way, this frame that you have here is very unnecessary. Look how badly they relate to each other. If you hadn't had that, you could have placed all these images so much bigger, larger, freer here. So if these are secondary groups, maybe they could have been placed in a different location. So I mean, this is nice, a simple, nice start, but you can kind of heighten its effectiveness a bit more. Thank you. Okay, Beyza. So the problem here is that this is supposed to be the opening page, right, of the project where we see its name. But the size that you use for the main name of the project is actually the same as your subtitles, like the research mockup, user scenario, and so on. So that's a bit weird because the beginning doesn't look like a beginning, and like these left and right sides are also very balanced, very equal in sizes. Let's talk about hierarchy. I think this should be huge. I mean, it's when I say huge, of course, don't exaggerate, but Oribox can take all the space here. Then under it can even overlap the surroundings a little bit. I mean, even these images, they're so equal in size. Always think about hierarchy. So the first thing that I should maybe see is the image. So it could have been much larger. Then the second thing should definitely be Oribox. Then underneath Oribox, I should see this text. I shouldn't have to go all the way to the right to see it. So once you have the large title Oribox, you shouldn't repeat the same name again. So Oribox, underneath, you say transformable storage box, aiming to encourage children to collect their toys after playing. You don't need to repeat Oribox again after playing. And offers an adaptable personal play area. So you see, you can simplify the phrase, you don't have to repeat the name and everything. And this should definitely, just like it is here, should come underneath the big title. So maybe you write the Oribox here, you write this text here. You can actually have a smaller one and a much larger image here. All of this text that I see here, it can be this size, it can even be smaller. It should definitely be smaller than the subtitle information, because this is a subtitle. These are additional things that people should they should be able to see it, but they should be focusing to be able to read it. So what I would do is I would get them closer together. So they should create a small group of information right here, for example. You don't have to say, you can say duration. Okay, so ID tree, all these informations are good. Some of them you can eliminate, actually, things like spring. If you want, it can stay. If you want, you can eliminate. Like why are these not aligned? I don't know. I think duration, semicolon, so 2 nokta, 5 weeks. Team, 2 nokta. Although you can put them like that, aligned to the left, or you can just add some commas and write them right next to each other. But like I said, you can even decrease the size and bring them together, make them like a small rectangular area for anyone who wants to see those information. So, by the way, I kind of assumed that these 2 pages were going to be like that, but look how the gradient is actually not fitting. So, I don't know. But since this is the opening page, by the way, I am okay with you having a background color. But the moment I'm through with this like introduction, the moment I come here, and the gradient is actually working nicely here, but you don't need that anymore. My suggestion would be to erase all this background color and just make it white. It's so much simpler to work on white. It looks so much better. Otherwise, all your like in between pages look like they're also trying to become like opening pages. They shouldn't. So research, as a result of user research. So you're not really telling me the research, you're telling me the results of it. Here, you should tell me what type of research it is, first of all. So you're maybe observing things, maybe these images can become larger here. And right next to them, maybe you can explain. the problems. So you see, storage problem, I don't know, storage ideas, some clutter. So the problems that you see, show me the problems, then tell me, okay, we need to solve storage, we need to solve the idea of creating personal space and modularity. Then from that, you get the kind of the conclusions or your ideas. You see, because right now I don't really see research. You're just telling me that this is what you're going to be focusing on, but it doesn't look like it's the result of a research. Okay, so our main material is t-shirt yarn for reuse. Why? Is this your idea, or was this something given to you? It was something given to you. The challenge of the project could be a way to express it, that it was something given to you from someone else. Or if it's something that you decided on, then maybe this image should be the first image that I see, and right next to it you explain. T-shirt material yarn is great for such a project because to solve these things, because it does this, and this, and then you kind of show me the mock-up. But you don't start with these things with the mock-up maybe, but although, okay, so here's the question then. Are these also reused t-shirt yarns, or was this something you used only for the mock-up? So you see, I'm not really sure. Maybe you have to start with the idea of the material. If the material is the main innovation that you have here, that should be the focus, the main title. Okay, before I move on, by the way, let me focus on the way you are writing those titles. I checked your identity. I can see that you had this kind of a curvy old thing that will probably be an important part of how you compose your portfolio. I can see these nice uses of the curve, the circles. But when you do the same visual joke again and again with every title, it really becomes boring. Plus, what this graphical element does every time, it really divides those typographies, those texts. Research, mock up is how you're forcing me to read them. So I suggest that when you write Oribox, maybe around Oribox you make one large circle and you don't actually divide the text, but you put the opening of the circle here, so it starts here, goes here, like that maybe. So make a big use of it here. Then from time to time you use maybe some circles to indicate a specific thing, just like you do here. These are really good uses, but stop using it everywhere the same way all the time. What you could do is maybe you can have a bit of a circle coming in, and that's where research will start. Maybe a bit of a circle coming out and going out. So, okay, kind of produce alternatives. Be more clever with your elements, the graphical elements that you have in your use. Do you really need to have curved squares? I don't think you need. You can actually, since these are white, and you will also, by the way, hopefully have white on the background, you can turn these into more rectangular shapes as well, because rectangular shapes actually fit better in that type of a page and allows you more space to write underneath. And also because when you put them rounded, the way the text kind of relates to that curve is a bit weird. That's why I rather have a, sharp corner, at least at the bottom. Maybe you can leave the rounded things on the top if you want to. So when you have it here, I'm a bit more okay with it because they're just there for create special framings and you're kind of overlapping stuff, trying to create something interesting. But maybe not in all of them. And also look how it's a bit too extreme of a rounded thing, isn't it? Maybe just like I explained here, what you can do here, since they're kind of all working together. This side is rounded, this side is rounded. Only this side and this side is rounded. So the rest, because they have corners and edges and they're clearer, they will look like they fit together like a puzzle piece. But the overall around it, there will be some curves. Okay, that's it. Good luck. So Cansu, let's see, this is, okay, it's looking good, I think. I wonder if this should be so flat or if you can have a bit of a curve here as it comes and goes out. That's a question. These are all questions. Maybe you don't want to. I'm just asking question. Another thing is, so if this thing is curved here, does this part and this part really also need to be curved? This is again a question. They could actually have a corners that maybe lead from one to the other. Again, just a question. Otherwise, they're looking pretty well settled and well designed, so that's working nicely. Now let's look at the portfolio. So, okay, you are making a really nice use of your C shape, but this is something that I said to other people as well. I'm really finding a bit weird this obsession some of you have of like, focusing on the number of that project. You're not going to have so many projects in that portfolio anyway. Why, instead of the title, instead of everything else, should I be focusing on number one? I mean, maybe just use the C around Patibulan. So maybe just around here, and then right next to it, you can start to write UI design for stray animals. And then you won't really need that line, and you keep using that line. I'm not sure whether it's really necessary to your work. Sometimes those lines are becoming, nowadays, everybody kind of wants to put those kind of lines everywhere, so they're starting to become very boring. But otherwise, here you have a really nice way you're organizing stuff. This is really nice. So maybe if I were you, I would get some green here and put it there to kind of make people focus on a prize that you actually got. Okay, I'm not always very fond of these type of inverted or like rotated text, but in your case, it is working nicely, and you have managed to create a really nicely laid out portfolio. It's looking very professional. So okay, let's keep it. You can, by the way, you can of course keep everything very gray, but since you have this nice idea of the green here, I'm not saying fully brightly green, but a tiny bit of shade of green can be in this color, or they can also come a tiny bit in these problem or solution things. Please just erase those lines. Really, you don't need them. Instead of having those lines, I'd rather you focus on aligning this group of text to the P, to the S, because they're not aligned right now. Here they're better aligned, I think, so you have a problem there. So as you see, I'm not reading any of these texts because I think you have too much text. Okay, today many people cannot produce quick solutions in emergency situations. What type of emergency situations? I really would like to see that. I mean, is this an animal that's in danger, or are we talking about a dog coming and biting someone? You see, too vague. And then I have long paragraphs. I don't want to read them, and no one will want to read them. Okay, for one sentence and then a few bullet points maybe, or at least have some things bold in here so that I don't spend time reading everything, but I just look at the bold words. I'm sorry, but this is unfortunately how this stuff works. No one wants to spend any amount of time reading this. So, okay, from what I see here, I understand that it's about an emergency that an animal has, but you see, I think you need to, because doesn't look really like the big problem. Or you have to at least then explain the problem a bit better. Instead of saying today, you don't have to start with today as if you're, really writing a long composition. No, just say, and then also you're showing me a big urban location, so maybe that's important. Stray animals encounter go into accidents and so on. Those kind of things is maybe what you should be saying in urban areas, and no one knows how to help them. Maybe something like that, very clear. Again, today, erase those things. Veterinary ambulances have become widespread. All the unnecessary words, if I were you, I would eliminate, like this one. Ambulance application for animals have started to be used widely. Again, wide again, in many cities such as Istanbul, Ankara. For example, you're repeating the same thing twice. Veterinary ambulance applications or veterinary ambulances are becoming widely used in big cities like Istanbul, Ankara, Izmir, Kocaeli. However, their uses remain limited due to the fact that it has not yet taken place. Yeah, so see, this is weird. I mean, you are repeating stuff and then you are contradicting yourself. You're saying they're becoming widely used, significantly used, and then you're saying, but they're not very aware of it. So you see, maybe you can say their uses are increasing, but not enough to answer all the problems, and so on. So, okay, Lily persona. Do I really need to have that text so huge? It's bigger than anything else. I think you're exaggerating. Again, these lines I definitely need to disappear. So I think Lily can become smaller. Age 23, Istanbul student. These are like too gray. I think you shouldn't leave things so gray. And by the way, so you are okay. Suddenly you're telling me about User interface. Okay, you did tell me that it was a user interface here at the beginning, but how did you come to this idea? There's nowhere in this thing. Maybe here was okay because I didn't read it, I didn't know, because I needed to see you telling me that we need an app for everyone to access those things very quickly. So maybe the problem also is that I need to see the research before. So there is this thing, but not people don't know that it exists. People don't know how to reach it. Those type things should be there. So you're also showing some applications very quickly. Tell me the problems with them maybe, or why you needed a new one. And then on this right page, give me the idea generation for very quickly the problem. We need to have a better, quicker, easier to use interface. And again, you see, I'm not reading. I don't know what it is. And then we come to these things. Yeah. Did I already tell you or not? I think this gray background, you should forget about it. Even here, it's really not useful because your text is also kind of a grayish. And when you also have this grayish background on the back, no, here's white, here it's gray. Okay, so okay, let me then rephrase. You have it in the beginning, and then you have it at the ending then, this grayish background. That would be okay. Whether you really need it here is because you want to show the gradients, okay, the shadows. Yes, the moment you kind of get rid of these unnecessary long text, these lines, and remember how I'm reading and understanding and what I want to focus, everything's going to be quite good because your design is pretty neat and looking professional. Good luck. Okay, we have Ceyda Kara now. So this is the opening page of the project. So I have this huge one here. Again, please, this is the old cause. I'm getting bored repeating the same thing. No one cares about which number this project is. This is the main thing that I keep looking at on your page. I want to look at this one, common. So it can be on the right, but if you have something so very clearly that grabs my attention, I have a hard time going over there. So this is what I want to look at. Common by Matthew. Why do you divide this in two? I think you have to write these two things a bit smaller so that they fit in one line here, right underneath. And this B definitely needs to be smaller. By Matthew Bookstore. Why are you distributing all these knowledge everywhere? Why are you giving me this? I mean, you're not doing a presentation here. It's a book. And on every project, are you going to give me this? This is what we expect from a design project. Anyway, erase all these things. So if you have the image here, maybe what you need to have, need to have a much larger common by Matthew Bookstore. That thing here, maybe, and then right next to that kind of arrow-like thing, you can put that text. The education system has been affected a lot from a pandemic that has been going on for a while. Common is an application which helps students to buy, sell, and physical education material. Wonderful. Just give me a bit more space between the lines, please. And like I said, let me repeat. This group, and the second line is just a single line, gets larger and could get larger, gets placed here, and this text is indicated by that arrow. It comes here, and it kind of uses this whole space. Then you can actually shift this image a bit more to the left. These additional things, like John, you also should say Matthew, ID something, service design. Why are you separating the course? Because, I mean, if you're saying course, Ekin service design, then it would make sense. But when you put it afterwards, it's weird. Just say Matthew ID something service design. And then underneath team, Ekin Pelin Soyaş Tuğçe Sözen. And the year, of course, 2020 maybe. So these things, since the images will be shifted to the left, can be placed much smaller, quite smaller really, in this corner, for example. Okay, so Ceyda, I'm also looking at somewhere else to check out how you made your, what was your identity? Okay, okay, I can see that this was the kind of the ideas that you had. You had the C's and the K's. So somehow these shapes will be part of it. I'm guessing it's part of your identity. These are really looking really nice with the research, the problem definition. I mean, of course, I'm looking at them as two pages side by side. Let me get a bit closer. I think still the research, the titles can become a bit bigger. They're a bit smaller. And alongside the main titles, I think your subtitles, like the main explanations that you put right after the titles, can also become a bit smaller. A bit bigger. So another thing, so here you do it right, research, and the subtitles actually, or some explanation, let's say, is aligned with it. But here you have moved to the right. Don't. This was your line. Actually, no, this is your line, just like you have it here. So this text should be aligned to this. So it's going to be moving up to here. And you have a lot of space. You can move this thing down. So get this text closer to this one. Get this one closer. And it doesn't have to go down like that. It can actually be right in the middle of it, right next to it. Or it can even curve if you like around it. But you have a lot of space. You don't have to go all the way up here. Because here's what. The moment I place this thing here, or this thing here, it actually creates a kind of a margin on the upper part. So I don't want these text or these images to kind of go over that side. From time to time they might, but if I can avoid it, I would avoid it, okay? So you have a different thing here. Is this also part of the identity? So be sure about not using too many unrelated graphic elements. These things that are I see everywhere, like the moon and like, I don't know, half crescent moon, full moon, they are so unnecessary. Are they supposed to kind of lead me from one thing to the other? My eye already goes from here to there. So please erase all these unnecessary things. They're really weird. So you have research, you have showing me something. What are these? 7, 8, 11. What does it mean? I read something, but I don't see a connection with the graphic. What is this? I don't know what these are keyword forms. You see, you put some stuff, but you're not really explaining. So maybe the numbers can be interesting, or the percentages, since you're saying more than half. Student take handwritten notes during critiques rather than taking notes digitally. Why does this image here? So it does, I cannot really relate it with what I'm reading here. So you see, you had these longer paragraphs here, and then suddenly here it looks much shorter. There's now, okay, this is a list because it's a list. You see, I'm guessing that all these, for example, here, 3 out of 4 is doing that, but you should say it. Otherwise, it's weird. Or, I mean, because sometimes you indicate an icon to kind of give us the idea of this is an idea, maybe, but no, we're not doing that. So I'm not. Are you visualizing the statistics, or are you visualizing the idea you're talking about? I'm confused. And then I have here, is this the idea that gets out of the research? Let's do a mobile application. Where does it come from? You should explain it to me, please. I mean, you are. It seems like you're using with really nice graphics. So visually, everything looks nice. You have a lot of space. Everything is clean, but I cannot really read the narrative, the process. So okay, I have these personas, or like, I don't know, stakeholders, and then you kind of give me things about them. Don't these circles take so much? Don't you think that these circles take too much space? I mean, couldn't they be just simple bullet points? Again, why do I have these? I'm not understanding many of the stuff. That's my problem. Oh, okay, here you had the identity. Sorry, I didn't see it. So I can, this is interesting, the way it looks more dynamic rather than these. So I like this angle actually. I like also how you use different colors. You can also maybe not use that much of a primary red, but something that might go a bit better with this really nice grayish blue. But graphically, geometrically, you are playing nicely with it. So whichever one you pick, it will be okay, but I don't see how this relates to these. They're a bit different, aren't they? So maybe you can actually change this a little to make it fit more like this one. The triangular thing maybe, but it's not that much of a problem. We can connect it somehow with the colors, or maybe you can just use half of it like this triangular bit. Even it can even, I mean, keep that angle. Okay, so you have, I'm sorry, so this is the final version of it. I didn't see it. So I think the colors were nice. You can actually bring in those colors. So I can understand now that this is part of it. Wonderful use of that identity. Okay, now I'm convinced. And that's why you also have these things. But like I said, I don't really want to see any of them on your page everywhere. So maybe this shape is what you could have placed here. Or since you have that shape, that could have also come here. I'm not sure whether this one, is it like the negative space? Does it supposed to be it? You can change it, I think. Overall, it's looking good. It's looking advanced. Thank you, Ceyda. Okay, so let's first look at the identities. These don't really look like they were designed together. They just look randomly place things together. They don't act together. So you can also add the curviness that you have here to these ideas. I mean, this could be, a half a circle. It could even come here. So these can have curves. It can be cornered here. It can have a curve here. So I think you're not really exploring enough. So why do I have this weird shape here, for example? Why doesn't this one come here really nicely? These are very rough digital, quickly made things. You have to now move on to the next step where you actually play with the details. Now when we turn it like that, whether we read the L is a question mark, but it's not that important maybe. But I want to see, like, maybe it starts as a point, it comes and it gets very thick here, it turns back. Maybe you actually place a full circle or ellipse and then you carve out these parts. Let's see what it looks like. You're not trying enough, I think, in terms of the identity. You cannot solve it with these very basic linear things that you draw in Illustrator. It's gonna take you months to solve it like that. Maybe you need to, once you see these things, we need to maybe draw it more by hand, sketch by hand, get the idea first, and then start to draw it digitally. That would be my recommendation. But overall, okay, so really it looks weird. Is it a flower or something, a tulip? I don't know what it is. But you have the idea of having a curve. Please erase all these background ornamentations. They're so very unnecessary. You're getting too close to the edges, especially since this is an opening scene. Too close, and too much long text and too much background image. I have this is the first thing that I read. This is the major, hierarchically, the most important thing appears to be the number of your project. Please erase that thing. Maybe that kind of a curve, and in it you write school. So this, what I can see, is the logotype that was designed specifically for this project. But are you going to have a specific logotype for every project that you have? You probably don't have it, and it's going to be really difficult to produce one. So what I suggest students do is, I'm already seeing the logotype here anyway. You don't have to bring it out and make it large. Pick a nice, good typeface, maybe a typeface that's already here, and write in a certain size with a certain thickness as the opening title. So maybe what I need to see is, after erasing all these background things, I would have a nice big school here. And if you like, that curve can be around it. And then underneath it, right next to the curve, here I can write UX UI design. The 2020 should be part of these blocks of information, which can be much smaller and which should be more contained. So passing on skills and criticism, so you're writing down the brief, what the teachers probably gave you. Or if this is kind of what you should be writing here, it should be shorter. So maybe what you need to write here is, yeah, what you should write in here is probably UX UI design, and then maybe, or even before that maybe, without repeating the name, educational online platform for children to improve their knowledge in music. And that's about it. Maybe that's enough. You can explain the other stuff inside, and then you can say UX UI design. And then very small, team member 2 Ada Javeira, underneath 2020, on top of it ID 301 and the name of the studio, or maybe the advisors and so on. Check out the critics that I gave to the others as well, please. It will save you time. Losing so much space with these large blocks to write research and nothing else. Research could have been written here with, if you like, this curve that you had. So maybe a curve and research, and you would have only sacrificed the upper margin, and then underneath, and because you would have gained all the space, here we can start with, instead of saying some interview questions, it's weird. Who are you making the interviews with? Maybe that's what, we can say interviews. 2 with kids, school kids, I don't know, something. So then you can give me, if you like, the interview questions, but maybe the interview questions I don't really care about. I care about the results that you got after the interview. So what did you learn out of the interview? That's what I want to know, not the specific questions you asked. So how might we is nice, but we have a lot of how might be. Can we not make all of these sentences much shorter, much quicker? And once we ask how might we, right next to it, I wanna kind of see some ideas. Maybe the ideation, maybe the I don't know, the specific insights that you got. You have to organize all this better because you're forcing me to give enough effort and I try to understand what you did, what happened. So co-design insights, really great. But what were they? I don't see. Yes, definitely. This way of doing it is really bothersome. You should definitely change it. Don't ever use lorem ipsum for these things because this is by the way a very long text. I would never suggest that you use that long a text. So with the actual text, let's see how much of a text you really need. Does this thing really need to go all the way up there? Because this is a background image. This is okay. But here is you have already did this. You have already kind of did lose a lot of one page to write something and then to give me a kind of an atmosphere, a mood. Here now, I want, if you show me an image, I want an explanation underneath it. What is this? I move from here to here. What do I see? When you make a scenario, because this is like a scenario, you should write down underneath everything that's happening. So I don't work with lorem ipsums, and you shouldn't either, ever. When I say I don't work with in terms of giving critics because they're meaningless to me right now. But the size of the text is good, the typeface is good, but you need to change many things. And these curves that are kind of everywhere, that this is really hard for me to follow this line. I'd rather see from left to right, from left to right, from left to right. This is how we are used to reading, not in curves, okay? Good luck. Okay, Ege. So this looks, again, too much like an illustration. So if you want to turn this into an emblem, a logo, first of all, maybe this full side should be black. This side should be black. I mean, check out the logos a little bit, please. I mean, you're still working too much by hand drawing and you're just drawing very basic shapes in Illustrator and putting them on top of each other. This line and this line wouldn't match like that. They wouldn't look like that. This looks like a caricature. And for whoever you show this, if you want to get a job or an internship, they wouldn't look at you as someone serious. So you should be changing this, please. Try to work in a more professional, with a more professional visual language. So I did say that you should start doing the portfolio with a more advanced project. This, I'm guessing, is a second-year project. You should definitely do it with a third-year project where you have the research as well, where you can show me how you narrate and tell me the research. Right now it's not working. So, okay, if you are going to deal with these kind of things, could be, but I think the subtitle is a bit too big. Yeah, but it's not too bad, but it could work. These things are really disturbing. They're taking too much. So these should be much, I think you can, by the way, this typeface doesn't work. This typeface is okay for the titles. For anything else, you should pick a less condensed, a less thick, a less bold, black actually typeface, a more regular thing. So with this more regular typeface, this should be a small block where you say sophomore project. I think. So you're already saying industrial design, so just say ID 201, Industrial Design 1 Studio, 2019. 4 weeks, is it really important to write that down? If you want to write, you can, of course. But I think it's more important, instead of writing that and writing sophomore, to write your advisors, like the studio teachers that you worked on this project with. Don't you have a model? Don't you have a render of it? Or is it just a sketch? If so, because it doesn't look very real, it doesn't give us a sense of reality. And here's what, number one, this is my first project. Is that the most important thing that I need to see in that page? Just forget about it. And look at how huge these titles are. They don't leave any space for anything else. And then the main thing, these actual sketches are tiny compared to it. Why do you put this thicker black frame when the image doesn't fit it perfectly. So either you have to fit it up, either you have to clean these ones in Photoshop and make them white. By the way, you don't need to have a background color. I think you shouldn't. Here, I might be okay because it's the opening page, but anywhere else, no. So make all of these things smaller, please, the titles. Pick a regular, normal kind of a typeface and use it smaller whenever you're going to write something. And no, never this. You never write it here and expect me to read here and then look at it here. By the way, if you are going to show me something as the top front side, there's a proper way of doing it in terms of technical drawing. And if you do it, they would really think that you haven't at all studied in an undergraduate design school. You're just self-learning or something. The top should be in a certain place, the side view should be a certain place so that I can actually visually recognize which one is which. Don't ever give me, like submit a portfolio with the lorem ipsum. It's meaningless. I really do care about the actual length of that paragraph, whether it's too much, whether it's too short, whether it makes sense when I read, whether I want to read it or not. So it doesn't work. You're quite behind, Ege, so please try to catch up. Okay, so the other Ege. So Ege, if this is the opening page, because you know the left and right pages are coming like this, what's going to be on the left side of this? Is this going to be like this color going on? Or would you consider maybe using the two pages together to create a kind of overall project? Because, I mean, here, or maybe is this what you were thinking of? Your project ends with a single page and on the right side of it, a new project like this one is going to start. Be careful about it. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but here's the thing. Look how similar in terms of color and everything this page is to this one. Visually, it doesn't, when I look at the overall project, it doesn't give me a sense of starting up a new project. So there needs to be a visual distinction. Either you do something so that your project ends like on the right page and starts on the left page, or you do something visually very different here that would separate it from the following pages. You have to solve it. So I was criticizing everyone for the, you know, the numbering the projects. Since yours is much smaller, you can, because it's, like I said, it's acceptable to have it small like that. But I don't think that's very necessary. So I kind of checked your identity. You had these curves, like circles that were following each other. I'm just guessing that you are going to be making use of that since you have this curve here. So you see, because this is italic, it doesn't align well with this. It looks like it has moved to the left side. So maybe you have to shift it a bit to the left. Do you really need that line? Why do you need that line? Is it very something, you don't not, okay, you're something very different. This line and that line don't have any connections, by the way. So these are something else. There's a huge distance there. This line is very unnecessary. Also, look how this text has come and touched this image. It's so annoying. Why won't you move this text a bit higher up so that it doesn't touch, it fits there like perfectly? You have to do these small adjustments so that everything looks good. So this typeface, by the way, has a very dactylo, a typewriter kind of a feel to it. Just be aware of it. If you really want to use it, know that it gives us that kind of a more, kind of an older feel. Don't write individual project. Unless you write a team and the team members' names, we already assume that it's an individual project. Also write Metu ID 301, let's say Industrial Design 3 Studio, I think would be a better thing. Let's move on. Okay, so there is not much going on your pages, are there? Just a very simple title, lot of space, images, this is, I think, forcing it too much. You can just leave it empty or just put a tiny dot for the bullet point, just forcing us. So I think just like you have something here, why not have a curve that comes here around the R, or a curve that comes from the outside and comes here? You can be playful with those curves. So tend to break is a bit maybe too much. Maybe break, or maybe glass handles are breakable, so breakable would be bold. Metal and plastic parts deteriorate and relocate due to the heat. Is relocate the proper name for it? I'm not sure. Check it out, please. So you're putting boldness to certain parts, but the places where you put the boldness doesn't really make sense. Handles take too much space is okay though. People cannot hold tickets. So, I mean, okay, but I'm not really sure. So, by the way, I think your typeface is really annoying me. It's this typeface really is not something that's very easy to read. And like I said here as well, it looks very old-fashioned. I think you can change it. I mean, it would be interesting to see such a thing for the titles maybe, but your title type is actually much calmer and like regular than this one. So first idea was to merge la. You're telling me too much. Don't just tell. I think you can put these much in a much bigger shape, like long image, and underneath them you can say a few sentences very clearly to express what I'm looking at. Otherwise, I don't see. So again, a lot of images, but nothing is explained to me. I don't know what I'm looking at. Keywords. Erase these. Write down with the type. Give me some keywords maybe. Maybe erase the honest. It looks like I have a lot of the same thing repeating and repeating. That's what it looks like to me. If there are different things there, maybe they should be quite clearly shown. So background color here, okay. No background color here and here any longer. Because look, that background color is actually forcing you to put this in a frame instead of using so much a larger area on white. So please, white background. Really, it's unnecessary. On a specific page, if you want to give a specific feel, you can maybe again introduce the background color, but don't do it everywhere. It's just, I'm really starting to get bored with the outline and the lines behind it. Why does it move up and down? Doesn't really have a meaning. It would look so much better when if they were, right next to each other without anything even connecting them. I would see them as a group, aligned, nicely spaced. Isn't this, look how large, I mean, I'm actually not seeing them small like this here, but even here it's so small, I'm hardly able to read it. Just too much text. Okay, please erase all those texts. Again, too many groupings. I mean, I can see that you're trying to set up the overall visual sense of your portfolio, okay for it, but I think you need to make some very clear radical changes. Good luck. And that's it for this group.